All right, welcome in. It is the afternoon update here, NBA style on Wager Talk. We certainly appreciate you stopping by. This is all about getting you any of the last minute updates that we have right around about 3:40 Eastern time in the afternoon. Now, the good news is we only got two games in the association tonight. We got plenty else going on across the board here at Wager Talk. The start of the Major League Baseball season off and running. Let us not forget Sweet 16 games coming up tonight. Four of them still looking to crown a national champion there. But with two NBA games here, and actually two pretty good ones. Well, I shouldn't say that. Three good teams. One, not quite sure why they're even still in the association. But Celtics, Hawks, Bucks, Pelicans. And of course, we'll go around the room as we welcome in Double R1L, Steve Merrill here, as well as Rob Vino. I would say if you are joining us live here today, whether it be on our YouTube page or on your mobile on YouTube Shorts, we go ahead and drop any questions you have about these games coming up here tonight. We'll get you all the information you need to know. Also, shout out to those of you joining us via Instagram here today. A lot going on in the world of sports here today, Merrill, but let us not forget, the NBA is in full effect, is it not here? And do you have any NBA plays locked, loaded, ready to roll?
Nothing official for the NBA. I'm going to give all my opinions out for free here on this live show at 3:45 Eastern. But if you're joining us live here, don't miss out on a free baseball play, which goes here in about a half hour on my page, SteveMerrillWagerTalk.com. So free daytime baseball, late afternoon baseball, and also my top best bet for opening day is actually opening night, and it is half price, just 50% off instantly when you get my first baseball best bet of the season, which is a late Thursday night game, and also my strongest Sweet 16 game goes tonight on Thursday as well. So lots of strong sports crossing both baseball and basketball, college and pro baseball, but we're going to give the basketball edition of the pro stuff free here on the show here in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, no, it's, again, only two games on the board here tonight, guys, and we'll give you the latest injury news as well as line moves, and I'll caution you, one of these games is probably going to hit 17 and a half where it's all said and done, but that doesn't really matter. Just ask the New York Knicks, Rob Vino, who have no problem laying monster numbers against teams that have already cashed out on the season. Like, I don't know, the Detroit Pistons come to mind, and so do the Toronto Raptors here. What do you have ready to go on a very loaded Thursday here on Wager Talk?
Real quick, Joe. Toronto made sure they were going to lose right off the bat. They gave up 80 at halftime. Detroit was right there at halftime. I think they were winning and realized, hey, wait a minute, we're winning. We have to lose this game, and wound up losing by double digits. I do have a play, 4% best bet from tonight's action, small card, big play. So go ahead and find it over at wagertalk.com. While you're there on the homepage, on my homepage, you'll find also a 4% best bet from college basketball Sweet 16 action tonight as we get revved up for this Thursday through Sunday push that'll leave us with only 4 teams. So a couple of big best bets up and available right now, wagertalk.com.
All right, love it there, guys. We'll start, of course, with that disgusting line here. Celtics taking on the Hawks. 16 and a half is what this thing is now, which ironically enough, I mean, we saw as high as 17 and a half. It looks like they have a little bit of buyback, but in some spots we saw this thing open up at 12 or 13, and then the injury report came out, and that's really where we're at right now. So Xavier Tillman, Springer, Al Horford, and Holiday all questionable, it looks like, for Boston still. And I guess the big one here with Atlanta is DeJounte Murray, still listed as questionable here. Jalen Johnson out. We already know that the Hawks are another one of these teams, Merrill, that, not a lot going on here in the final couple of weeks of the regular season. But the Celtics aren't at home here. They're on the road. The Hawks have been feisty at home. 226 and a half, 226 is what we're seeing as the total seems to be coming down as well. Can't say I blame the market for that move, but is it lay it or pass? Like, what do you do here in this spot with the Boston Celtics tonight?
Yeah, the Hawks feisty at home is actually kind of relative. They are 19 and 17 straight up though. So I get what you're saying. We're getting a huge home dog here that actually has a winning record straight up, and they're just 14 and 22 against the spread. So most of the, situations they have actually been a home favorite this season, and in home games they are plus 1.5 point margin. So I'd have to say you'd have to go pretty deep in the database to ever find a situation this late in the season where we have a winning home dog with a positive scoring margin catching 16.5 points. The problem is, as Ralph Michaels, who does a great job digging into databases, pointed out earlier this week, double-digit favorites from game 70 on have been a winning play over the last 6 years. Home favorites almost 50-50, but road favorites laying double digits have been over a 70% play against the spread. So Boston fits that sweet spot. But at what point is it too much? I mean, this line did open 12.5. That was probably what the true number should be. Maybe there was some thought that Boston would be sitting more key guys like Tatum or Brown. Maybe that's why it's gone up, because those guys aren't on the injury report. But still, 12.5 up to 16.5. Tough to pull the trigger with this big of a number. But once again, one of the reasons these road favorites by double digits have covered 70% of the time the last 6 years is because it is difficult to pull the trigger in these situations. So history tells us it's Boston or pass. What kept me off this situation in this game tonight, though, is not only that the fact the Hawks have been competitive at home, like you said, but they're 26 and 46 against the spread. They've been one of the worst point spreads in the history of the NBA this year. They did pick things up a little bit over the last couple of months, but still, they've covered 3 straight and they've won 3 straight. One of those was as a 10.5 point dog against Boston at home just 3-4 days ago on the 25th, 3 days ago. So this is one of those quick revenge spots for the Celtics. But what's really weird about this setup, Joe, Boston hasn't played since that loss 3 days ago. They remain in Atlanta, I assume. Hot Atlanta, maybe that's a distraction. But the Hawks had the Blazers come in last night. It's a really weird scheduling dynamic that they would break up the home, the back-to-back series. So I don't know what to make of this. It doesn't look like a great spot for Atlanta. Be Boston or pass for me. And historically, that's been a good play this time of year.
Yeah, no, it certainly hasn't. It's been profitable here to this point, Vino, over the last couple of weeks. Don't be scared. 17, 16 and a half, 15. They'll cover them. Clearly, there are some people still battling, some teams still battling. Other teams have absolutely cashed out here. But when you get these big spreads like this game here tonight, what's the best way to approach it?
All individual, Joe. And this one happens to be a specific spot here where Boston blew a 30-point lead a couple of nights ago to this team. I mean, the first half of that game was an absolute demolition of the Atlanta Hawks. Boston did whatever they wanted. They made every shot. And then they wind up losing that game with a 30-point lead. And, for a team that's comfortable as the number 1 seed, right? They're not really being pushed at this point in time. You can afford a loss. We saw their top players step up to the podium after that game, pissed off to say the least. Jason Tatum was not happy. There's a bunch of quotes here in articles today. Porzingis not happy. A whole crew of Celtic starters and players voiced their opinion on, we shouldn't be letting up on a team like that. So I think the uniqueness of this situation is, Boston's 11 games in front of the Bucks for the number 1 seed. They're going to be the number 1 seed into the Eastern Conference playoffs, but how angry they were at blowing that game the other night. So I think that anger comes out here. They've been able to sit around. As Steve mentioned, the scheduling dynamic is a little bit strange. They sit around, they wait for Atlanta to come back to them. And in the meantime, Atlanta lays double digits last night against Portland. And in covering that game on a show with our colleague Ski Profit, my thought process was Atlanta wants to win that game last night because they know they're going to get slapped around here on Thursday night against the Celtics. It wouldn't surprise me if, in fact, Atlanta does rest DeJounte Murray. He was on the injury list last night, but he went. He played 30-plus minutes, I think, in that game against Portland, which they did win. And for them, their playoff position is the 10 seed. And in pretty good shape as the 10 seed. I mean, they could try and hunt down the Bulls. They're only a game and a half behind, but I don't know that they'll press that hard in this particular instance. All that being said, I will mention that Quinn Snyder has talked about, they've been shorthanded, the Hawks, but he mentioned in a couple of quotes yesterday and then again today how unselfish the team is playing offensively, passing the ball to one another, and how it's been a long time coming that they've been able to play that way. Sort of a selfish team turning into an unselfish team. They're scoring better. The offense is flowing better. So for those reasons, you probably would look to take points here. It's an excessive amount. The total hasn't really budged. 226.5, still 226.5. I think Boston will score theirs. And the Hawks, if Murray plays, probably get theirs as well. So interesting game. But I think as angry as Boston is, maybe the way the Hawks are playing, if Murray goes, you take the points in this one. We'll have to see what the final injury status is on DeJounte Murray. But I can guarantee you, Boston's not going to let off the pedal here tonight.
Yeah, so 6-0, the Celtics since February 14th as an 11 or more point favorite here. We also, I mean, listen, this is that rematch from a couple of nights ago, which was hilarious watching Celtic fans melt down in the second half. I will say this, though, Merrill, the database is spoken. So when you get a team in this kind of spot as a big road favorite since 2002, of at least 9 points or more after the All-Star break, 268 and 158 ATS. So we are certainly looking at an edge, and you mix in the fact that they're a little pissed that they lost that game the other night, blowing a 20-point lead there. I would imagine, I don't know, I'd even have to look at them early and often in this one. Team totals over, first half, anything involved with an over with the Celtics is not a bad look here tonight. We also have a game I think that's going to be much more competitive here tonight, and that's going to be the Bucks taking on the Pelicans, 8 o'clock here tonight. This has been back and forth. Patrick Beverley is probable. The only thing I'm seeing listed on the Milwaukee Bucks injury report. Jose Alvarado and Brandon Ingram still out for the New Orleans Pelicans, and I am seeing this thing hovering around. It opened up the Bucks -2 as a road favorite. I'm seeing -1, -1.5, and I'm seeing it tick up a little bit as far as the total goes here, Merrill. 224 up to 225 in a lot of spots, maybe even 223.5 as an open in some places. So points, we're starting to see the total over. We're starting to see the money come in towards the Pelicans at home. What are you seeing in this one?
I mean, the big question for me is which team has less of a letdown after tough games the other night? Two tough losses for both of these squads. Of course, New Orleans looked like they were going to get blown out. They overcome a 20-point third-quarter deficit and actually led by 5, had a fourth-quarter lead, and then still faded down the stretch, lost by 7 at home against Oklahoma City, a high-profile opponent who's fighting for the 1 seed in the West. But then the Bucks might have been even worse. I mean, the Bucks took on the LeBron-less Lakers team and squandered a 19-point lead, fourth-quarter lead, and lost in double OT. So, I mean, you can make an argument both teams will be focused, but you could also make a point that both teams might be a little fatigued after the way they lost just 2 nights ago. If that's the case, I think the edge probably goes to the home team. That was also that dreaded first game back at home after a 4-game road trip for New Orleans, and obviously they came out sluggish, down by 20 in the third, but they did turn things on, as I mentioned, in the fourth quarter. So I would expect New Orleans to get out of the gate a little bit faster. If you're looking to play this game, maybe a first half play on the Pelicans at +0.5. They're +1 for the game, but you get them at +0.5 for the first half. If it lingers a little bit, that double OT loss from Milwaukee lingers, we might see it early on in the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion with this line here, Vino. I know I spoke to a lot of folks this morning that think maybe why are they a dog at home to Pelicans, to a Milwaukee Bucks team that has proven that they really can't be trusted in some spots here. Pelicans would love to get this one in there, but no Ingram. Do they have enough depth without Alvarado and Ingram to get this done? Do you agree with them being a dog here?
Well, I think to your point, Joe, about Milwaukee, can you trust it? You can't trust New Orleans, right? They're the worst fourth quarter team in basketball. What happened the other night isn't the first time it happened. They're the worst scoring team. They blow more leads than any 5 teams you can put on one hand and place together. They just don't play the fourth quarter. They don't finish, and I don't know that it helps any not having Brandon Ingram. I mean, for a couple of years now, we've heard wait till they get Zion back, wait till they get Zion back. I think what we're seeing now is that Brandon Ingram may be the most important piece of that starting unit. And Alvarado is the guy, you know, we're not telling anybody anything new, but he's the guy that brings the defensive energy off the bench. For New Orleans to blow that game at home, a very important one to Oklahoma City the other night, it leads me to believe that they just can't be trusted here either. I think Milwaukee's more apt to bounce back. I think Milwaukee right now is, and you could probably make the same case for both of these teams, Joe. But for where Milwaukee's concerned, having Chris Middleton back now for 4 games, 4 or 5, I think, and having Giannis in the lineup with him, maybe it's only their third or fourth. They're starting to get the big three back in what they would call their big three back in some type of flow. It gets tiresome to read the quote from Giannis after the Bucks lose games. We just have to learn from this. I used to make fun of John Morant because he would say that all the time when Memphis would lose. Oh, we're going to learn from this. And then the situation arises again and nobody's learned from anything. But I think it's a little bit different with Milwaukee. I do think that Giannis probably, much like Steph Curry with Golden State, right? They put up with a lot and they don't really show it. They try to stay positive. I think Milwaukee's the better team. They're the deeper team. I don't trust New Orleans in any fourth quarter situation. So for me, it would be Milwaukee or nothing. I think you could look potentially total here. Because as we've said time and time again, no matter what Doc Rivers tells us, that defense ain't getting any better, Joe. As Steve mentioned, they gave up a boatload of points to the Lakers the other night without LeBron James. So maybe it's a higher scoring game, but I would trust Milwaukee a little bit more than New Orleans.
Yeah, and that ain't saying a whole hell of a lot here, people, at all. But I will say this: I mean, for a significant portion of the season, New Orleans was a tremendous early first half covering machine, but nobody is better at first half covering numbers than the Boston Celtics. Let us not forget they covered the other game against Atlanta that they blew the 30-point lead in there, but they were certainly well on their way to covering that game. I can't see how I just can't see how they're not going to cover this one. The Bucks with that miraculous comeback against the Lakers a couple of nights ago there, they weren't well in the first half either. So it seems like a first half kind of night to me here, guys. But that's we're going to see exactly what we get from both these teams, and we're still waiting on the injury report for Atlanta to see if whether or not DeJounte Murray is going. Now, looking ahead tomorrow, a monster card in the NBA, but some really good news for Sixer fans who got absolutely hosed last night against the Clippers, because it appears that the Clippers can only win a game, much like the Lakers, if the refs are in their pocket. Lakers with 43 free throws the other night against the Pacers to what, 16? That seemed fair. And the non-call against Paul George last night. They just learned that it looks like Embiid traveling with the team. They fully anticipate Embiid back in the saddle here sooner rather than later, Merrill. To me, they would be nothing but a fade team until we can get a couple of games underneath and see what we're dealing with here, because something tells me the entire world is going to run to the book and bet the Sixers once Embiid is in uniform.
Yeah, and the playoff situation really is pretty nonchalant in the West. We talk that the Celtics have already officially clinched the 1 seed, I believe. In fact, they have. They're up 11 games with like 8 games left. And Boston is about 5.5 games ahead of Denver right now for the best overall record with like 8 or 9 games left. So they've almost clinched that. So that's why I think the Celtics, you got to be very careful with. This does look like a focus spot. The more we talked about the game tonight, Joe, the more I do like Boston. It'd be by far the only way I'd play it. And I also think, by the way, that line move from 12.5 to 16.5 is already priced in the fact that Murray probably will not play. He is questionable, but as Rob said, he was questionable last night. They beat a beatable team. Tonight is when you rest him, in my opinion, especially a game that you're probably not going to win. So we'll see if that line climbs much more, but that 16.5 might already have that pretty much priced in that Murray doesn't go. But bigger point about this conference, though, is you look at the Hawks. They're currently the 10th seed, which would be the last of the 4 play-in teams. They're 5.5 games ahead of the Nets, so they're pretty much in as well. There's really no battle for playoff spots. Where the Sixers are battling, though, is they're currently 8th. half a game behind the Heat in 7th, 1.5 behind the Pacers in 6th. And that's, of course, the key spot because you don't need the play-in game. So Philly's got about a game and a half to make up to avoid the play-in round, which they're pretty much locked into otherwise. So I would think they're going to take it easy with Embiid, maybe get some of the rust off. And for that reason, you're probably right. He's not going to dominate out of the gate if he comes back anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, Vito, you're in Philly, man. You're in the area.
Yeah.
Got to be at least some, there's got to be excitement, right? Because they keep going the wrong way. It'll be great to have him there. But as far as it just seems like there's going to be far too many people expecting wonderful things here with Embiid in the lineup far too quickly here. What is your take on him coming back? Is it just way too much of a question mark? Or will this team... Well, the team's got to be better with him on the court, no?
Oh, without question, Joe. And it will bring to light some of the moves that they made during the trade deadline, including Buddy Hield. And, it's a really good team on paper, 1 through 9, with Joel Embiid as your starting center in Joel Embiid type form. We probably don't get that right away, although he's been present. Nick Nurse basically said last night that he was going to play before season's end. We don't know exactly what that means. If it were me, Joe, Cleveland's kind of a hard team tomorrow night to go ahead and throw Joel Embiid out there against Jared Allen. The way Cleveland plays physical, maybe you don't want to put him out there right away against those guys, hold him back for another game. But the plan all along, the hopeful plan, the wishful plan was to have him for the last 8 games of the season, which is exactly where we're at right now. I think they have 9 left, the Sixers do. So they've got him back. They'll probably ease him into things. And I'm with you. If people are going to rush to the window, first of all, I guess we have to see how the odds makers compensate for Joel Embiid when he does come back. Right now, we see no line. The overnights don't show a line on Philly, Cleveland. But it'll be interesting to see how much the bookmakers price into it. That'll probably dictate where bettors can go with it. But you would think that fading Philly right out of the chute, the first 2 games, 3 games or so, would be a smart play. But we'll see how it goes. Joel at full force though for the playoffs now. Anybody who's got future tickets, anybody that wants to buy a future ticket on Philadelphia now that their odds have probably rocketed a little bit, right? I'm sure they were much lower earlier than they are now.
Absolutely.
So you can get a good price on Philadelphia and maybe hedge at the end. And real quick, Joe, to your point about the Clippers and refs in their pocket, it's an interesting matchup tomorrow night. Just because I'm looking at openers now, the Clips open 1.5 favorite in Orlando tomorrow after Orlando blew the game to Golden State last night. I don't know that I wouldn't be looking at Orlando as an overnight play either, because the Clippers were a miserable looking basketball team heading into last night and probably should have lost last night as well. So maybe Orlando worth an early look here.
I kind of like it. Where you going? Orlando really, I mean, how exactly do you start a game 3 minutes in, Draymond gets tossed, Kuminga's not playing, and you go 0 for 14 right after Draymond goes out. So, and then you're down. It's unbelievable what a poor effort that was on Orlando's part. Coming off a loss against Sacramento, having the rest advantage, and they threw up all over themselves, which worries me about this team moving forward. But I'll tell you something, Merrill, I noticed, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this as well, and it's worth keeping an eye on. I'm watching that game. I'm on air last night covering that game, and I am watching this 0 for 14 situation happen. And, don't forget, they closed a 4.5 point favorite. They were down 18, 19 points, and they were still in a game there. They were getting 4.5, 5. Now, usually we used to live in games see somebody's down 20. Those numbers used to be astronomical. You get 8, 9, 10, you get 11 points. So 20-point leads now in the NBA, the in-game numbers, the live betting. They're telling you, no, don't worry about it. They're coming back, Merrill.
Well, yeah, Boston, the best team in the NBA by far this year, blows a 30-point lead against a hapless losing team. So, it's just going to happen to anybody. The Magic are a very simple team to isolate right now. They beat up on they're a bully. They beat up on bad teams and they struggle against good teams. This is a team that went 5-0 straight up in ATS against the Nets, Jazz, Pistons, Hornets, and Wizards. You and I could go 5-0 straight up in ATS against those teams. And then they lose outright and fail to cover in competitively priced games against the Knicks and Pacers, playoff caliber teams. Then they run off another 5 straight wins and covers last week against the Nets, the Raptors twice, and the Pelicans. Decent win against them as a dog, and the Hornets mixed in there again. And then what's happened since? As you mentioned, they lose outright as a favorite at home against both the Kings and Warriors. Now they're facing the Clippers, who, by the way, tomorrow night, this is on Friday, the Clippers are now on a 2-8 ATS run and just 4-6 straight up. So even with that win last night, they still didn't cover. So really a team I don't trust. But it'll be interesting to see what Orlando does tomorrow, because they have the Grizzlies on Saturday and the Blazers on Monday at home. Obviously, 2 winnable games, 2 teams they should rout, but it's going to be a no-rest situation on Saturday. So we'll have to see how hard they go tomorrow night on Friday. But if they lose that game to the Clippers tomorrow on Friday, you got to figure it would be the Magic or pass against Memphis and Portland on Saturday and Monday.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, you've noticed that too lately with these 20. What's a 20-point lead anymore? There's no value in 20-point leads anymore. Betting them in game, because the number you thought you might be getting in situations doesn't exist anymore. It's absolutely unbelievable how 20-point lead in the NBA means squat in the scope of things these days.
Yeah, did they change in game from an algorithm to a human actually controlling the point spread, Joe? Because generally,
amazing.
You wouldn't expect to still be laying 5 when you're down 20. I mean, you're supposed to be getting points at that point. Yeah, that's just a strange occurrence, and would lead you to believe that it's not an algorithm making the changes in that particular instance. But no human can make the changes as fast as they are made in game live. Real quick, to Steve's point about Orlando, it is interesting with them because Wendell Carter had a quote prior to last night's game talking about how important it is to them to get home floor advantage. They sit in 5th place, I think, looking to get into 4th. They're looking to pass the Knicks, and then they go out last night with a golden opportunity and don't get there. Remember, that was a team, I don't know how many they bullied, but they were an 80% cover at home this year. They're 16-4 as a home favorite, and they were beating teams by 10 points a game as a home favorite. So it's not like Orlando was just rolling over all week teams at home. So it was a kind of a weird spot for them last night to just come up flat. But that's the NBA. You and I talked about it a little bit off air, how the other night a LeBron-less team plus 10 had to be the way to go, because that's just the way of the NBA nowadays. When you lose your star player, you cover. I got to start keeping a spreadsheet on that, because it just happens night in and night out. We'll see how it goes tomorrow for Orlando. Like I say, that's a team that knows they need home floor, at least for one round, and had an opportunity last night and didn't take advantage.
Yep. Lakers, Indiana tomorrow. Golden State, Charlotte trying to keep winning games. Miami's at home, welcomes in Portland. Denver and Minnesota. And, of course, the Knicks taking on the Spurs. OKC Phoenix, certainly going to be a game we're looking at tomorrow here on the afternoon update in the NBA. But tonight, just 2 games going on right now, and 16.5 is what the Celtics are laying. The Milwaukee Bucks still is a slight favorite, laying 1. Total is 225. So it's a light card here in the association tonight, but huge card tomorrow on a Friday. Certainly would invite you back to come back and join us tomorrow for another edition of the NBA Afternoon Update here on WagerTalk TV. We certainly appreciate you stopping by. Sweet 16, by the way, great content. If you missed some of the best bets and the game previews coming up, definitely check it out on our page at WagerTalk TV on YouTube. Those videos are locked, loaded, ready to go. We just did a huge Q&A and covered pretty much every game in the Sweet 16. That's just a couple of clicks away. And, of course, Major League Baseball is back. We opening day here today, a couple of games already in. We've got best bets posted on our page as well at YouTube. I'm getting to is that, yes, it pays just to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, become part of the WagerTalk TV family. We have got you covered. Welcome back Major League Baseball, Sweet 16 action, NBA, NHL, and so much more. And on behalf of Steve and Rob, we appreciate the time here today. Make plans to come back and join us again tomorrow, right around the 4 o'clock Eastern time. We'll go over all the latest NBA news, action, line moves, injury reports, and a whole bunch of best bets and picks. Until then, guys, best of luck with your plays tonight. We'll see you again soon.